All right, hey guys, and welcome into another episode of the Level Playing Field podcast. We got another fantastic conversation to have today. Now we're talking about how the NBA and NHL need to expand, not only to grow the game, but to afford more opportunities to the amazing athletes that we have in throughout the country and around the world. So, how, Dennis, tell me about how population size on top of the money that's pouring into these leagues, how can they help grow and affect the future of these sports?
So Andrew, we got these NBA franchises, right? So 60, 70 years ago they were formed, right? At that time when they were formed, our population was half the population it is today, right? And when they were formed, there was half of the Division One basketball programs and hockey programs in our country, right? So we didn't have this developing opportunities for these young athletes. Do you understand? So now today we have double the population, right? We have double the Division One basketball teams and double the Division One NHL team. College teams, right? But guess what? We still have the same amount of NBA teams, Andrew, right? And we talked about this and we covered this with the NFL team similarly. Look, we don't want pros playing basketball in college. We don't want it, right? We don't want pros playing hockey in college. We don't want them playing basketball in college. We don't want them playing football in college, right? But what's going on here, because the athletic, the diamonds in the rough, the guys that didn't have opportunities 60, 70 years ago, are having so many opportunities to play basketball because there's 100 more Division One basketball teams today than there was 70 years ago, right? And it's become such a technical. We have all these different basketball clubs, and we have all these different basketball instructors, and all these little league up to high school advanced clubs and programs and development with weightlifting and various exercising with running or skiing. I mean, being on skates. It's so much more advanced today. You understand? And the athletes are developing at such a higher level, and we have 2 times the population. Now, how can they just have 26 teams, Andrew? You understand? Every single state should have an NBA team and an NHL team. And I know we talked about this. And it's not just for the opportunities for the athletes. Now, when these athletes have these opportunities, we're going to get them out of college. People and the coaches are speaking out against the NIL. The fans are speaking out against the NIL. And look, Andrew and I are speaking out. We're probably the biggest voice in America today on this whole NCAA, the National Chaotic Athletic Association, falling apart. Do you understand? But look, in defense, I'm going to defend them one time, Andrew. I'm going to defend them one time, right? In defense of them, the NBA and the NHL was so filled with greed. Those owners, they can't think past their noses, Andrew, because if you have every state having a team, that's another, what is there, 26 teams in 20 states right now in the NBA?
There's 30 teams in the NBA, and I think 30 in the NHL.
All right. Yeah. And so there's 20 other states in each one of them. But I think like Pennsylvania has the Penguins and the Flyers. So I didn't really do the numbers. But anyway, every single state should have an NBA team and an NHL team. So those guys now that are playing being paid.
32.
But again, there's probably only 20 plus states. Do you understand?
Right. Oh, yeah. No, double. California has how many? Canada has a few. Pennsylvania has 2. New York has 2. 3. 3. Three.
But the point I'm making, the point that we're making is we have this tremendous amount of athletes right now, and the opportunities aren't there for them. So they're playing in college. Right? They're playing, and that is taken away from the opportunities for these 18 and 19-year-old young men to have opportunities to play basketball in college. One of the coaches in the NCAA was on our last show, we debuted him on our last show, man, he was going crazy. He's like flipping out. He's saying, how could you take a 28-year-old and put him at Baylor? This isn't basketball. And how can I take an 18 and 19-year-old to compete against a 28-year-old that's making money?
Yep.
So we have to stop it now, and we the people have to do it. And how do we do it? Andrew, stop watching, man. Stop watching. People were upset at the Super Bowl situation. The NFL don't know what to do with themselves. Over 7 million people didn't watch, their presentation that they were trying to put in front of us, and we said no, we're not watching it. That's what you all need to do. You need to speak out against the NIL. It's got to stop. But how that's going to happen is we need the government to get involved. The governors, the congressmen, the senators, the president of the United States. It's a monopoly. And these guys that are owning these NBA franchises are so greedy, and the NHL and the NFL, for that matter, are so greedy that they want, that they want to keep the money. And the players' unions too are a bit greedy. But I think the players' union would loosen up and say, hey, we need more. We need more opportunities for these guys. And that, in essence, talk about the economic factor that each state would have, Andrew, the positive multiplier effect from it. Because I know you have friends of yours that are in the in professional sports and in maintenance and in engineering and things like that. So what kind of positive multiplier would it have if every state would have an NBA team and every state would have an NHL team?
Hey guys, do me a favor. Check to see if you're subscribed to the channel. If you are, great. If you're not, it's super easy. It's free. It doesn't cost you anything. It doesn't sign you up for anything. It just helps us bring you the insider conversations that the big networks aren't going to cover. Love you guys. Okay, back to the show.
Well, I think it's a great point because we always talk about, whenever you hear politicians talking about creating jobs, creating jobs, job creation, blah, blah, blah. Look how many jobs we made. You want to talk about high-paying jobs? Make the sports franchises spread out across the country. Make there be 20, 15 more sports franchises per league. I mean, if you do 15 per league, I mean, that's an extra 60 teams right off the bat. And we talk about how many, not only the players, not only the coaches, strength staffs, the maintenance, field and surface, everything that needs to be done operationally to make your experience when you go to watch one of these professional teams. There's a million people behind the scenes that make that happen, and they're all getting paid a decent salary. They're not making minimum wage. These are all people with degrees that are getting jobs to make sure that the playing surfaces that these $1 million athletes are running on are perfect. They're making sure that everything that's in the arena has to be perfect. It has to function at a professional level, at a very high level, and not to mention, if you're building arenas in all these new cities, that's good for concerts. That adds into any of the restaurants.
The construction industry grows from it.
It builds into everything. And on top of that, one of the big things is that in America right now, we have such an explosion in these secondary markets and these secondary teams or the secondary cities that there's the argument that people aren't going to go. It's a lie, because the population has exploded since COVID. And now that all these opportunities are spreading out around the country, it just lends itself to making sure that there's opportunities, not only for the players, but for normal people who just need to get jobs. I liken it to, was it FDR Eisenhower, who did the Interstate Project. Interstates across the entire country put so many people to work right after World War II. That type of level of project, I don't understand why a president doesn't do that. You want to talk about goodwill? You want to talk about creating wealth and showing off the amazing architecture and skilled labor that America can produce? That would be an amazing thing. And not only that, it's way better than roadways, because every time you have an event at one of these amazing facilities that was built because of this like project, well, guess what? That's shown around the world as American exceptionalism and how good we are and all of that. So it would be an amazing thing to spread the wealth and give everyone an amazing opportunity.
Awesome positive multiplier effect. And the politicians are always talking about raising taxes. They want to legalize marijuana.
Yep.
Right? They want to legalize gambling. Right? This can't scratch the surface to what taxes and what positive multiplier effect that it would have in these communities. And I would tell you, 15 is a small amount. I mean, football has exploded. Basketball has exploded. Hockey has exploded. Major baseball has exploded. People, look, my wife and I had a conversation about it. It's good, sound, fun entertainment for our youth, and for them to have things to do. And then for them, most importantly, we have 60 million youth competing in athletics in America, right? We need opportunities. I think this should spread out into soccer. It should spread out into women's soccer, lacrosse, all the lacrosse leagues, all of the softball leagues with the women playing softball. I think they all should have professional franchises in every single state in America, and then they can use these facilities. You understand? They can make these facilities that they're multi-dimensional. You understand? So from my perspective, I want to see youth sports boom. I want to see athleticism boom, because we have this pandemic, this health pandemic that's going on right now, in which we have obesity, we have mental illness, and these are the types of things that help that. Do you understand?
Oh, yeah.
Having an expanding athletics in America has got to be a priority of the powers that be, not legalizing dope and gambling. Do you understand?
Yep.
So they need to take a good hard look at this podcast and all the podcasts that we do, because our podcast makes sense. And you, the people, in our 250th year, you just need to speak up and man, go to work. We just had over 7 million people turn their TVs off, right? Because they didn't like what the NFL was trying to shove down their throats, right? No, we, the people, we like our American football the way it is, right? We like our American sports the way they are. We like our country the way it is. We don't want to get these greedy owners, or these television stations, or these politicians that want to try to push their causes or push their purposes through athletics. That needs to stop, right? We need to get the pureness back in athletics, Andrew. And I would tell you, what also has bothered me about the NIL. We talked about Yale and Indiana being tied now for the most wins. 1894 Yale team, and Andrew and I, we talk about the Ivy League on a regular basis, right? My son went to Cornell, wrestled at Cornell, and one of my sons. So I'm a little upset right now too, because when I was watching that Michigan State hockey match, Andrew, the announcer said, and they just picked up so and so from Cornell on the NIL. I'm like, those dogs. How could you still? Cornell, you go to Cornell, it took them 40, 50 years to build an awesome hockey team. And then, there ain't a lot to do in upstate New York, Ithaca, New York, right? So you go to a hockey game, there's 8,000 people at a hockey game at Cornell, little Cornell. And you go to a wrestling match, there's 3,000 people at a wrestling match. So now I'm watching some wrestling. I'm looking through wrestling. Rutgers and Michigan stole a Cornell wrestler through the NIL. Cornell wrestling just got beat by Columbia. It's like their first loss they've had in forever against an Ivy League team. They won the Ivy Leagues every year for forever. So what I see happening with this NIL is not just affecting the amateur athletic status, is also affecting the Ivy Leagues, because you can't transfer into an Ivy League school, but you can transfer out. You understand?
Yep.
So now, we have Cornell University, who's superstar, hockey and wrestling. In fact, the Notre Dame's the current Notre Dame's football coach is his son is going to go wrestle at Cornell. Is my understanding. He's going to go over to Cornell and wrestle. But the thing is, they're stealing the guys, Andrew, and that's something that really needs to be addressed. And that's where the NIL is the devil. I really believe strongly it has and continues to have a negative effect on the NCAA athletics, the Ivy League athletics, and athletics in general.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's a death penalty, honestly, for the Ivy League. It's how can you have this thing that is supposed to what's the word, give power to the athletes, but then not have some of the schools that are in your umbrella just aren't going to do it, aren't going to participate because academically they don't want to do it. It just doesn't make any sense. The NIL at its core had good intentions, but that's the road to hell is paved with good intentions, and that's exactly where we're at right now. Everyone just said, you know what, this is a great idea. Let's give the kids more power. Let's pay the kids. Let's do that. They deserve what they deserve. We're making so much money. First off, they're still only making pennies off of what these TV contracts are, but this is a perfect opportunity, or a perfect example of institutions like the Ivy League schools, like Princeton, Cornell, Brown, like all these schools that are, I mean, they've been around literally forever, since the founding of our country. They're the ones who started all of these sports, and now they're just being swept to the side because I don't agree with everything that they do over there, but like at some point they said academics are more important than sports, and financially they might pay a price for that. And it's a shame. It's a shame that that's the trade, where you need to make a decision if it's athletics or academics, and you can't have both.
All right, guys, let's take a second to talk about our friends over at Summit Web Search. The internet is a big place, and if you're running a business, just being online anymore isn't enough. You have to stand out from your competition. That's where the team at Summit Web Search comes in. They help businesses with digital marketing, web design, graphic design, but what really separates them is how they prepare companies for where things are going. With AI coming in and changing the way people search for information online, you have to stay ahead of the curve. Instead of guessing and chasing trends, Summit Web Search focuses on what makes your business show up where it actually matters, in front of the people that are going to spend money with you. You need to chase those people down who are already online looking for your product. Because in a world where visibility is everything, that's what being online is all about. It's being positioned to win day in and day out and get your clients the products that they want. So if you're ready to stop guessing and start getting found, check out Summit Web Search and let them help you level the playing field. All right, let's get back to the show.
And Andrew, they're tempting the athletes.
Yeah.
It's like, the guys, they go, they're excited, man. They really like Coach Mike Gray, the wrestling coach at Cornell, or the hockey coach at Cornell, or at Harvard, Jay Weiss, or these various coaches. I know all the guys, man. And they like them. They go there, and all of a sudden, then they got it going on a little bit. And Michigan's calling and say, "Hey, I got 100,000 for you.
Yeah,
Come on over." And
how are you supposed to say no? How at 18, 19 years old, how are you supposed to say no to $100,000?
They shouldn't be tempted, though, bro.
I know.
It shouldn't be an issue where they know in the back of their heads when they go head up and they put themselves on that transfer portal, they know that the money's gonna come flying in because they're seeing it happen to different guys.
Yep.
You understand? And don't give me this that they have to put it up before they can communicate. They got agents. They got people calling and doing and what and when. So it's really tragic that this NIL is really not just affecting the athletes. You understand? It's affecting institutions now from a negative perspective. You understand?
Yep.
And I know. Look, man. I know that the pureness of amateur athletics, the NCAA, the National Collegiate Athletic Association, is not the International Collegiate Athletic Association, because in hockey, that was the other thing. I'm watching the Michigan State game, Andrew. 3 of the guys are from the Netherlands, from Switzerland, from Sweden, from here, from there, from where, from Canada. That's garbage, man. And it needs to stop, because, Andrew, you know, as Coach pointed out with the transfer to Baylor, he's 28 years old. He's 28 years old. Indiana, the national championship punter, was 30 years old. Do you understand? The punter that messed up the game for Miami was a 24, 25-year-old freshman or sophomore. I mean, look, and that is the biggest problem that we all have. You're not comparing apples to apples. You understand? Our athletes are coming out of high school, 18, 19 years old, and these guys that are coming in from overseas to play hockey, right? To play basketball, and they're 23, 24-year-old, basically playing professionally in their foreign countries, and now they're coming into the college ranks and taking the scholarships from our kids who are killing themselves at clubs. The parents are driving them all over the place in hockey and in basketball. It's got to stop. And the parents, look, if just like those over 7 million people that didn't watch the Super Bowl because of their halftime entertainment, you need to do the same thing. You need to voice your opinion to the universities and to the athletic departments, along to the NCAA and your politicians, man. This needs to be lit up. Look, we have some momentum. We had the 1980 Olympic team speak out to the current president about NIL. We had Troy Aikman. We had some coaches just recently come out, and they're jumping on Andrew and I's bandwagon, we should say. But you all have to voice your opinion. It's pathetic. It's not just in football. It's in basketball and hockey, and we need to get our hands on it and stop it now. You know. And that's something that you all need to do. I mean, it's real easy now to contact and reach out to these various powers that be in every state that you're in, not just Pennsylvania. Andrew and I are based here in Pennsylvania, but this is going on in every single state. Yes. And let me tell you, there's one other thing that bothered me, Andrew, when I was watching the Olympics this past year, the Women's Olympics. It seemed to me that there were some men that were competing in female sports, you know. And that is like so absurd, you know. And look, it needs to stop. I don't care what, when, or how. And we need to be the voice of that. Okay, not just these 23 and 24-year-old foreigners, 30-year-old foreigners, 20 in football, and 28-year-old in basketball. I mean, think about that. You understand? We got to speak out against all these injustices that are happening to our daughters, to our sons, to our nieces, to our nephews, to our goddaughters, whoever that is, man. It's our responsibility as Christians to stand up for injustices and fight for, the amateur athletic status in the NCAA and in the Olympics, Andrew. We really need to make a push on that.
And we did an episode on Title IX, and if anyone's interested, they can go and listen to that, because it was a really good conversation trying to understand, it's about protecting women. It's about protecting women's opportunities, just like men's. Just as we're talking about sitting here with, international athletes coming over, we're protecting American children's rights to, have the opportunities to compete athletically in college. Well, that also factors into women. And with this whole situation with the transgender athletes and everything, we need to protect the rule. There's rules in place for a reason, and they're clearly being manipulated to lean a certain way. So,
and Andrew, even USC, University of South Carolina basketball team.
Yeah.
When I was turning through the channels, the University of South Carolina was playing LSU in basketball this past week or two. I don't remember, but man, there was a line out the boop, and there was thousands of people from. It was at LSU.
Yep.
And I believe they beat LSU, but the University of South Carolina gives men scholarships to compete at practice against their female team. I mean, what is that? Those should be female scholarships competing against females on that particular team. So there's all kind of different angles.
And I think that's a perfect example, right? Because they do that. Let's give them. Let's just make the argument right here. Competitively, they do that for a reason, because biologically men are bigger than women. They're faster. This isn't a better worse thing. This is an apples and oranges thing. So perfect example here. If you're saying, hey, we want to give scholarships to men so that our girls have to practice harder, that's the argument, right? That's why they do it. They don't do it because like they're evil people who don't want women to, like Dawn Staley is the coach down there. She's not an evil person. She's a competitive person and realize like this is how to make my girls even better. Well, if you take that argument and you spin it right into your transgender athletes, even if you mentally find yourself in a woman's body or a men's body and you think you're a woman, it is what it is. But physically, you are not. So that's literally the argument right there, is how can one thing be okay and the other thing cannot be? And the reason is that the whole argument is ridiculous, and we have biological men competing against women. Obviously, they're going to be better. I don't know if I remember if I made this point or not, but that famous the swimmer Leah Thomas or whatever, when they won the swimming competition or whatever, I had some fun because I think we were starting the podcast at that point, and I was like, well, let's have some fun and actually look up the stats, because swimming is a straight line. There's no one in your way. This is just point blank. Can I swim from point A to point B, and how fast does it take me, right? So it should be pretty straightforward that, like, if you're competing, men and women, if it should measure up perfectly. If you're swimming 400 meters, you're swimming 400 meters. They don't change the measurements, right? So I looked it up. So I said, okay, well, what was the time of this transgender athletes that won gold? And whatever it was, I forget the actual number, but say it was like 1:30 or whatever. And I was like, well, what was the second place? They beat them by like 20 seconds. It wasn't even close. They blew them out of the water. And I was like, okay, well, what were the qualifying times, or what was the gold medal time in the men's 400 or whatever race they were running? It was so much faster.
40 seconds faster.
It was so much faster. I looked up, I was like, well, what was the last place time? That guy, that transgender athlete wouldn't have even qualified for the finals. So let's just stop. The whole conversation is a moot point at that point, because if it's swimming and you're measuring the exact same thing, I understand if you feel some way mentally, I completely understand, and I pray for you, and I feel for anyone who's going through anything, any type of mental illness or any type of mental strife. I totally understand. But when you're competing in a physical arena, you can't bring a mental capacity into a physical arena. It just doesn't. It's apples and oranges. So
that's a great comparison.
Yeah, it is.
And what I would tell you is it's the records that all, and there's not a whole lot of them. We hear this argument, but I did see some in the Olympics. I couldn't pinpoint, just by looking at them and seeing their stature, but it's happening, and it's happening in America as we speak, particularly in our state of Pennsylvania. But here's the thing, and I'm all for them competing. If athletics is awesome, but there's clubs that they could go and participate in.
They should have their own division. And let's be honest, like if you want to say anything about it, if you feel that, like, the whole transgender issue and everything like that, they should have their own division to compete against each other. And I love it, because you know what? There's no better way to make someone feel comfortable in their body than working out, being healthy, being positive, being athletic, moving your body, anything that makes you feel physically better. I'm all for it. But you need your own division.
Absolutely. And the thing is, Andrew, is everybody forgets about the records, and we've talked about this on our show, is all these overtime football games and basketball games and hockey. I mean, overtime needs to stop, man. And all these extra games they've added on, we have all these tremendous records. You've got Dan Marino and Walter, all these great athletes, you understand, that have these records that are just going mush. And these women, right? These women, because of, like we just said, there's ties. There never used to be ties before. You understand? So now a team can actually play 2 or 3 or 4 more games in football or basketball just playing overtime. Did you understand? Whereas 15, 20 years ago, there wasn't any ties. A game ended in a tie. It was a tie.
Yep.
You understand? Same as the NFL. But what hurts the males competing against the females is all these beautiful women through Title IX and through the opportunities they've had. They've established records at every high school, at every university, in every state, in every country in the world. And all of them are being, what you just said, abolished. They're being just thrown away and disregarded by a biological male competing against a female. Because I know people say, "Oh, there's not so many of them. It's not a big deal." Well, you got to understand the whole picture. It goes back to the Olympic Committee banning Russia. Then people worked their whole lives to have an opportunity to compete. America not competing in 1980 with the 2 great godly men, the Lieberman brothers at Lehigh grads, weren't able to wrestle. And to this day it haunts them. It bothers them. You understand? So the sacrifices that these athletes make, I don't care if it's a little high school record, do you understand? Or an Olympic record or whatever it is, it matters. Do you understand? And that is what is being defiled by letting males compete against females. You understand? I'm all for them competing. And that's why I said there's a lot of clubs, there's a lot of things that they can do, but you can't compete against these females who have lived their lives to try to make something of themselves, and it's stolen from them unrightfully. And that's another issue that we've been covering. We want a level playing field. We want those our daughters, our granddaughters, our nieces, our goddaughters, all of them. We want them just to have a fair and level playing field, and that's not a fair and level playing field. But I wanted to bring that up. With the Olympics being in full bloom, I do believe I've seen it.
Yeah.
But I couldn't pinpoint it. And all of these countries, especially the European countries, are very naive to it. And even America is naive to it. But it needs to stop and it needs to be addressed.
Yep, absolutely. Well, a great conversation and one that needs to be had because these are topics that blend outside of sports. This blends into the real world and the politics and all the topics that we talk about on a daily basis with our friends and family. So again, I want to thank everyone for listening. Always remember to like and subscribe all our videos and leave comments and interact with us because we love to hear from you guys and what you're thinking out there. So again, as always, stay tuned for our next episode. And until then, have a great day.